Hi, I'm Kat, and today I'll be making some arrows. So this video is perhaps part of my Kat Learns About Archery series. I think the alternative title for this video would be Kat Learns How Expensive Archery Is. Yeah, I think in the last video I did about archery, Dan showed me around his old bow and arrows, which I was going to take over and use when I learned to shoot. I was expecting actually that I'd be able to use a lot of that kit and save myself some costs up front. That was not the case, not at all. Because everything on the bow is tailored to the archer, I've had to replace everything but the riser and stand. um, Unfortunately, I was able to borrow a long rod and limbs and arrows from my club, and the rest I've been building up bit by bit. And I got a few things for Christmas too, but I still have a ways to go. So yeah, I think as with any hobby, there's always more kit to be had. So I've had to triage and get the most important things first. And now top of that list for me is arrows. Until now, I've been shooting with club arrows, and these have a number of disadvantages. So first off, the ones I've got are too long for me by about 2 inches, like they're really long. Second, they have blue fletchings, which is the same colour as a lot of the folks I find myself sharing a target with. So spotting my arrows among the thicket when it's time to score up is sometimes a challenge. 3, the club arrows are aluminium, which means they're fat. And having fat arrows is good inside because, you know, they chop a bigger circle out of the target and maybe cut the line and get me into a higher score. Fine. But outdoors, they are slower and the wind tends to affect them more, catch them more. And apart from evenings over winter, mostly I'm going to be shooting outside for the majority of the time. So yeah, I've upgraded to these carbon aluminium arrows, which are slimmer. And because we shoot on the heath, which is a conservation zone, we can't shoot purely carbon arrows, because if an arrow misses the target, we need to be able to find it and remove it from the heath. And when looking for our arrows fails, we need to be able to have the metal detector as a backstop for finding any that have gone astray. Yeah, so I think these have enough aluminium in them, inside the carbon, to be detected, but they've got enough carbon fibre in them to make them slimmer and lighter while still being stiff enough for the poundage that I'm drawing. So these particular ones that I've got are cartel shafts, and Merlin Archery are currently selling them for, I think it's 30 quid for 6, which is a very good price. Yeah, and I got these in the Black Friday sale at an even better price. So there we go. So they cut the shafts to size for me, and a member of the club helped me measure the length so I could input it in the website and ask for the correct length. So yes, these have been measured for me. But yeah, I think part of them being such good value arrows is that there is some assembly required. So I need to glue the points in one end, and then push the nocks in the other end, and then I need to glue the fletchings on. Right. Today I'm just going to glue the points in, as I'm missing equipment to do the other 2 steps. To put the nocks in, I'll need a knock pusher, and to put the fletchings on, I need a fletching jig. I can borrow the knock pusher from somebody at the club when I see them in a couple of days, and I've got a fletching jig on the way from Merlin. So I've had this process explained to me at the pub, What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the point with the pliers. No, I'm going to hold it, not drop it. There we go. Hold the point with the pliers, and then use the lighter to heat it up. Not too hot, but fairly hot. And then when it's hot enough, I'm going to use the stick from the hot glue gun and rub some of that onto the metal. Then I'm going to slide it into the shaft and then quickly drop the shaft and everything into this water here to cool it off. It's important that I don't get the point too hot and that I cool it off as soon as possible, because heat isn't very good for the carbon fibre parts. I've also been told not to go too overboard with applying the glue on the point, because then it'll just like squish out the end. Okay, let's do this. Wish me luck. Okay, butane lighter has failed me, so we're on regular lighter, which I assume will take longer to do the heating up part. Wrong end. Right end. Nope. Job for the patient, this. Okay, well, now it's got hair stuck to it. Well, I've got fingers made of cast iron anyway. Okay, that did not feel fully successful. We dropped it. It was definitely cooling down when this stuff went on. And then I thought I hadn't put much of this on at all, but then what had previously been very easy to slip in became very snug, and I really had to force it. So yeah, perhaps even that which I thought was way too little was in fact too much of the glue. Okay. Now I got it in here. I've just cooled it off. The carbon seems fine. Right, try again. Okay, I did the first 6, and after the first one, where I was just dropping things left, right, and centre, they all went really smoothly, which was like suspiciously smoothly. Like I've done something wrong or I've missed a step smoothly. So we shall have to see. I definitely put enough glue on that the glue was coming out at the seams. And now that it's cold, I can apparently pick that off with my nail and it'll be fine. That's cool. So out of my first 6, I think I'm counting that as 2/3 success. These 4 all look pretty good. It's in solid, it's in all the way. Yep, that's all good. These 2, perhaps not as good. The first one, because I was struggling to get it in. I think maybe the carbon is fiber on the outside is lightly cracked, which isn't great. And this second one I didn't push in far enough. There we go. But, you know, I'm not going to take my own word for it. Having done the first 6, I think I'm going to take these to the shoot on Thursday and show the people who actually know what they're doing what I've done. And they can critique my work and give me any tips I need before doing the next set. So another day, welcome back to the floor. My initial set of arrows that I pointed got the seal of approval. Well, 5 of them did, 5 of 6. Got the seal of approval from the members of the archery club. The 6th one, which I just quite hadn't pushed in so far, has been taken away by a more experienced archer to fix it, which he has done, and I'll be getting that back today. Yeah, so having gotten the seal of mostly approval on 5 out of 6, and it was the last ones were the better, so I definitely got better at it. I'm just going to go ahead and point the rest of these guys. I was going to use my butane Zippo, but it's empty, so I'm using the slightly lower powered flame lighter, which does seem to be getting it plenty hot enough for the hot glue. One note about the hot glue is I was told to get the one with the lowest melt point to make it easier. These are just what we had in the garage, but they seem to be doing the trick okay, though I think the rest of the pub archers think that it was maybe a little bit of too high of a melt point on this particular glue stick, but yeah, just 30 seconds or so of lighter seems to do the trick. Okay, on the ones I made earlier, you may be able to see that I've already put the knock in. I seriously doubt that it's focusing in the right place. I'll do the hand thing. So what I was waiting for to put the knocks in was to be able to borrow one of these. Oops. Hand thing again. To borrow one of these from the archers, from one of the archers at the club, which is a knock spanner. So the point of that is, you know, you've got the knocks here and the string goes in the bottom of the groove there. And then you've got these two little arms, which are a little bit more fragile. So when you're like, you need to, it just push fits in. You just got to give it a bit of oomph. And when you're giving it oomph, you don't want to give it oomph on the arms because they might break off. So you put this guy inside the knock spanner. God, I'd be interested to know how this focus situation turns out, doing the hand thing. Yeah, which means that the little pointy bit in there is putting pressure on the bottom of the groove, which is what's designed to take the pressure, because that's where the string's going to go. Right. Okay, let's knock spanner. So it's just as simple as push it in, give it a little twist for encouragement. Boom. Hand thing. That was a good one. It's been the quickest part. For anyone that cares, these are Eastern G small groove knocks that I picked because of the colour. Yeah, my sight is actually really bad, so I can't see the arrow in the target, even inside actually, at 20 metres, I think, or 20 feet, whatever, no, 20 yards, whatever we do for a Portsmouth, 20 something. Yeah, I can't see the arrow in the target, even at short distances, without great difficulty, which makes me and my eyes feel very old. But you know, I guess this could be expected. One ages, one sight ages, but I still have the hearing of a teenager. This I know because the antisocial behaviour, high frequency, stupid noise alarms still get me every time. And that's very unpleasant. So I would trade a little bit of sight aging, a little bit of hearing aging to decrease a little bit of my sight aging, let me tell you that. Ta-da! Okay, so the next step in this is to fletch the arrows, which is to put the veins on. Yeah, we've got yellow and purple for the veins, and those are Avalon parabolic veins, 1 3/4 inch, 100 pack. Even though I've only got 11, well, I've got 12 arrows, but only 11 I'll be fletching. But yeah, the veins come off. You have to put them on again. Good to have spares. Yeah, so I've gone for yellow and purple because if there's anything I've learned during my time with the archery club is that everyone likes for their stuff to be all matching and good looking, and purple, nobody's using purple, so that actually makes it really easy for me to spot my own arrows if they're the only ones, well, at least when I'm shooting with just my club and not against other clubs in the county, is that there's going to be purple on them, and that's the only one. And then the yellow and the black I sort of added into my signature colours because those are the club colours. So if I'm wearing club kit, that's the yellow and black, and then all of my stuff is purple, and it all comes together looking super coordinated. It's very shallow, I know, but yeah, I mean, I guess if you're a long time watcher of the channel, you have just seen me execute a very shallow, only 3 colours cut on my regular day-to-day wardrobe. So it makes sense that in my archery I would also be working with a restricted, cohesive palette. Right, in any which case, so I had to wait for this fletching jig to arrive, again from Merlin Cartel, same brand as the arrows, I think about 18 quid, before I could go ahead and fletch it. If you can hear that sound, apologies, it's my husband doing unspeakable power tool things to defenceless wood in the garage. So after I got this, I reconvened with the archers at the unofficial clubhouse, otherwise known as the local Wetherspoons, and we had a bit of a tinker with it and made sure it was set up right. Whoopsie doodle, and then I got the official demonstration of how to use it, which caught the interest of other drinkers in the pub when we had the arrow sticking out of it. When we had the arrow sticking out of it in the pub and were generally playing around, they wondered what on earth we were doing, and we said, oh, we're fletching, and they said, oh, for fishing, and it's like, no, this is either the world's shortest fishing rod, or they thought we were doing it like Tom Hanks in Castaway. Either way, when we said it was for archery, I think they backed off a bit. They were like, oh, it's not going to shoot in here, despite the absence of any bows. So I don't know if they thought that maybe this was a very compact miniature crossbow. I do not know. But hey, like any hobby is a bit arcane to the uninitiated, and I guess I would consider myself in the process of being initiated because so much of it is very arcane to me still. So what we've got is a fletching jig, which you put the arrow in with the knock down, and it clicks in here. And then this has a bunch of settings that it clicks at. I think I've put that in the wrong way up. Let's try again, other way around. Okay, yes, okay. So, you put the arrow in the jig. There are 3 click stops on the knob on the back, and those are at about 120 degrees apart. And if you're a proper archer, you can stop listening now because you know this, but there are 2 different colours of flight that go on, of vein that go on, and they're called the cock flight, which I will henceforth be calling the index flight, because I'm not sure if that sort of word gets me automatically like demonetized or blocked or whatever YouTube does. And then the 2 are called the hens. Yeah, I'll just call them index and other ones for the course of the video. So this guy needs to be facing away from the string when you pull it, and there is a little notch on each of the nocks, which is sort of perpendicular to this line here, going through the middle of the nock, so the notch is there, and that notch needs to line up with the index vein, the one of the different colour to the others. So this was slightly off when we first saw it, had a look at it in the pub, but now it is a little more, one of the archers had a bit of a fiddle with it, with the old Allen keys, and now it's a bit more on. So once you've got the arrow in and you've got it set up to the correct notch, you start with the index vein and you put it in the nippers. But first, so we're going to be gluing it on. But before putting it on, I want to give it a little rough up down this line here with some sandpaper, because that will make the glue just a little more likely to adhere to it. And then you put it in the nippers. There's a scale on the nippers, so you always put it in the nipper in the same place. I'm going to get faster at this, I'm sure. Oh, come on. All right. So you put it in the nipper, and then the nipper, this is magnetic, and the nipper slides on, and you just pop it on right there, and it sticks the flight to the arrow, and it's theoretically just that simple. and then you just leave it for 5 seconds and it sticks on, and then you move on to doing the other ones. So yeah. I'm actually seeing one of the arches in about 20 minutes, so I'm going to try and get one fletched, and then we'll take that for review and see if I'm cleared to continue with the tactics I've been using. One thing to make sure is that you always put it on the same place. So you want to get your arrows as same as possible. So even if, like, this viewing has a little bit of a idiosyncratic moments, that's fine. As long as the idiosyncrasies are consistent, well, A, not too big, but B, consistent. Which is why I was recommended to get my own flighting jig rather than use a random club one, because then if I need to refletch anything, then if I need to refletch anything, I will be always doing it the same way. So generally you shoot 6 arrows. I've bought 12 because you always need more than 6. In case you lose one, so you've got a spare one. You know, if one breaks, you're not faffing about fixing it, you just swap in one with your other ones. But it's good because it means that with this being my first set that I'm making, I can pick out the best 6 to be my starter 6. I'll also be leaving one of them without vanes on, because that is used for diagnostic purposes of an arcane nature when setting up the bow. So there's all sorts of stuff like this about setting up your kit, and you know, strange new words like tiller that I still need to learn, and I'll cover in a 2 out of 3 ain't bad, man. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Which I'll be covering in a future video as I do learn to do these things. Yeah, but it's kind of interesting because, of course, you do a course, and then the beginner's course, and then you turn up at the range and shoot with your baseline first kit for a while, and you know, it's not really covered, the sort of choosing and building and setting up of the equipment. You know, it's because it's not something you do every day, but it is something that one must learn, and something that I'm looking forward to learning. But so as you can see, I was a bit wonky on the index flight. Might have to rip that off and start again, but pretty straight on the 2 purple ones. We've got a little bit of glue smeared onto that one, which I'm sure for super pro archers would make a great deal of difference to the aerodynamics, but for little old me, probably not. I've got other things to worry about. It's like the first pancake, innit? I think it was the same. It was the same with putting the points in. First pancake, not great, but actually after that, reasonably easy to get the hang of. Right, I shall go get this, the seal of non-approval for this, before continuing with the rest. Definitely a bit wonky. Okay, so I'm back. And I got the okay on my first pancake of an arrow. Yeah. My friend looked at it and said, yeah, that's not too bad. So I guess that means it's shootable, even if the index vene's a little wonky. So I think he said that I should probably put a little bit more glue up underneath that if I want it to stay put. So we'll do that. But as you can see, it is now past 4 o'clock, which means that I've lost the light. So I'm going to bring it over to this table so I can add a little bit more light to the subject.
Okay, so that's not a bad job. It's not great. You can see that I've smeared the glue around a bit, the white bits where I've been trying to wipe it off. And a couple of the index veiners are wonky. Honestly, I think the jig for the index vein bit is not great. They all seem to be, all the purple veins seem to be fine and easy, but all the index veins seem to be slightly not quite connected in the same way each time. So, problem with the jig or how I'm using it. But they all look like arrows, so that's the goal. And yeah, I'm not fussed about a few bits of glue making it look scruffy as long as it flies relatively straight or straight as I can make it with my limited archering skills.
And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Here I am editing this video, and that is where the footage ends. Maybe I thought I'd filmed more and the camera had turned off. I think more likely I was sick to the back teeth of arrows at that point, and I just wanted to drink some wine and sit on the sofa. So I'm going to just give you now sort of a quick overview of what has happened since I finished fletching the arrows. I've taken them to one of our indoor shoots, and I was getting pretty good at that. And I shot like an absolute numpty and knocked 80 points down from my PB. Yeah, it was not a triumphant shoot. Usually when that happens, it's the archer's fault. I am new to this, less than a year in still, and sometimes I just forget everything I've been told, and hunch over, lean back, tip my head back, do all sorts of throw my shoulder up, all the bad habits. But this was the first time I was sitting there being like, I can't be sure if it was the archer or the arrows which are the problem. And not because the arrows themselves are problematic, but because anytime you change anything in your setup, you kind of get a bit broken and you kind of have to relearn and recalibrate for the new equipment, which is why I'm not changing anything on my bow until I can change everything on my bow at the same time. Yeah, so hey, at least all the arrows were on the target. At the end of the shoot, we did a bit of a calibration where I shot 3 fletched arrows and 1 unfletched arrow just to see where we were at. If the unfletched arrow had gone madly off the target, that would have been showing that actually the arrows were not great for me, and that perhaps the veins were having to do too much work to correct things. It's good when the unfletched arrow nestles in with the fletched arrows, and while it wasn't a tight group, that was to do with the archer. Apologies for my husband banging away in the background there. Yeah, so I think all the, if we're to read a great deal of diagnostics into one end's worth of me shooting an unfletched vein with the fletched vein, uh, whilst tired at the end of a shoot, is that perhaps the arrows are maybe slightly not stiff enough for me. Well, that's okay. We'll shoot with what we shoot with, and for arrows that I paid maybe 60 quid for everything to get this done, I'm happy with that. I mean, members of the club were telling me they spent £300 for their sets of arrows, and that's fairly standard. So yeah, as a beginner set, as my first set, that's tailored towards me, and my first set that I've had a crack at making myself, I'm happy. There's room for improvement, but I don't want to be all gear and no idea. I'm gonna, level up the kit as I level up, rather than going all out for amazing, tremendous arrows whilst I'm still myself not at all a great archer. Thank you for watching this video. I appreciate it was a long one. Oh, I've been feeling that during the editing process, my goodness. Yeah, please do like and subscribe and comment and ring the bell and have a smashing day.